Money Talk.
This is Akashvani. In the program Money Talk, now we bring you a discussion on Pradhan Mantri Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana. The participants are Ajoy Sharma, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, and Arjun Chaudhari, Anchor.
Today's topic of discussion is on the Pradhan Mantri Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana. And why is the scheme important? Because it found its mention by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the occasion of 15th August before the nation, where he mentioned about the importance of employment, along with his mention of industrial and business policy for the benefit of India. Let's hear what the Honourable Prime Minister had to say.
प्रधान मंत्री विकसित भारत रोजगार योजना आज ही 15 अगस्त को लागू हो रही है। ये आपके लिए खुशखबरी है। इस योजना के तहत निजी क्षेत्र में पहली नौकरी पाने वाले नौजवान को बेटे बेटी को 15,000 रुपया सरकार की तरफ से दिए जाएंगे। कंपनियों को भी नए रोजगार देने के अवसर जो भी ज्यादा जुटाएगा उनको भी प्रोत्साहन राशि दी जाएगी।
We also have a special report from our correspondent regarding this scheme.
On the occasion of the 79th Independence Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the Pradhan Mantri Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana. With an outlay of nearly 1 lakh crore, the scheme aims to provide employment opportunities to 3.5 crore youth. An incentive of up to 15,000 rupees to employees and up to 3,000 rupees per month per new employee to employers would also be provided under the scheme for creating new job opportunity. Employees with salaries up to rupees 1 lakh will be eligible to apply for this scheme. This is a historic step towards Viksit Bharat as it would formalize country's workforce by providing social security coverage and better future prospects for young men and women. Shreya Pathak for Akashvani News.
Ajay Sharma ji, in a nutshell, the Pradhan Mantri Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana has incentives for both the employer and the employee. Could you tell us something about this scheme for the benefit of our listeners, which is simple and easy to understand?
So Arjun, this scheme is our Honorable Prime Minister's vision for supporting employment generation, enhancing employability and improving social security coverage. So as we all know that on this Independence Day, the Honorable Prime Minister announced this scheme from the Red Fort. And the total outlay of the scheme is approximately 1 lakh crore and to be precise 99,446 crore, and it envisions supporting generation of more than 3.5 crore employment. And how is it being done? So it incentivizes both the first time employees and the employers, and the scheme incentivizes the industry across all sectors, though there is definitely something more for the manufacturing sector.
Ajay Sharma ji, let's focus on manufacturing first. The initial policy, which was very successful in terms of productivity, was a PLI scheme, the Production Linked Incentive Scheme. Now you have the ELI scheme. How is a PLI scheme different from the Employment Linked Incentive Scheme?
So, as you rightly said that earlier through PLI, the government was supporting the capital investment in different sectors to improve not only production but also the employment. But now through ELI, we are directly supporting the employment generation. So the scheme has two components. The component A supports or gives incentives for the first timers. So first timers who join any establishment which is registered with EPFO, they will be given a 1 month's wage as an incentive, and it's a cap of 15,000 rupees. And the only condition is that they have to remain at least for the 6 months on the job. So this 15,000 incentive will be given in 2 installments. First installment will be given after 6 months of continuous job, and second installment after completing 1 year. And one very important thing in this scheme is it also focuses on financial literacy. So for availing the second installment first time employee, he has to undertake or he has to pass a financial literacy course which the ministry has designed, and after that his second installment will be given to him through DBT transfer.
Ajay Sharma ji, coming back to the Prime Minister's address, because it's very important. He spoke about how important manufacturing is He mentioned about the manufacture of semiconductors in India itself so that we become Atmanirbhar. He also mentioned about other industries, especially oil and gas, so that, we can tap these reserves from the ocean and the sea basin, which is within the exclusive economic zone. And whenever we talk about business and industry, you have to link employment with business expanding. You also require the other factor of production, which is labor. And clearly, when you talk about the Pradhan Mantri Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana, the scheme itself, it is directed at a growing economy as well. How important is skilling a part of it? Because you need highly skilled labor to be able to tap into these growing industries.
So, rightly said, this scheme also incentivizes employability. How? Because the mandate of the scheme is that if any employer has to get incentive, then he must make sure that the employee is there for at least 6 months. And we know that on-the-job training is the best training. So, if an employee or the first timer, because this scheme is more to give support to the youth. So, if any youth who is joining any industry and if he is employed there for more than 6 months, then definitely his or her employability increases. So in a way, this scheme incentivizes employability as well.
So let's just come back to the incentives to employer and employee for the better understanding of it, both by businesses and those who are seeking to get employment. We're talking about the vast majority of the public who tune into Akashvani. So what is the incentive for employers? Let's start with that.
So for creating additional employment, the employer gets benefit for 2 years. And what are the incentives? It depends on the salary or wages he is paying to the employee. It's a slab-based thing. So, for an example, if anybody employed by the employer has the wage more than 20,000 rupees, then the employer gets 3,000 rupees per month for a period of 2 years, provided that that employee is retained for at least 6 months. Similarly, if the wages are little lesser, for example, if it is in the range of 11 to 20,000, then he gets 2,000 rupees per month. And if it is less than 10,000, then it is 10% of the wages being paid. So in a way, the construct and design of the scheme is such that it nudges the employer to give more wages to the employee, because as the wages are increasing, the incentives are also increasing. So for all sectors, these incentives are for 2 years, but for manufacturing sectors, additional incentives for year 3 and 4 are also inbuilt in the scheme.
Let's try and understand what is the incentive for the employer, because they are investing capital, there are factors of production, along with it land, labor, capital, enterprise, technology. It's very important for the medium and small enterprises, along with large corporations, all who are to benefit from any policy of the government in order to grow their business, in order to expand their business. And again, it's very important to link employment with the growing business as well, which is of course being facilitated by the policy of the government.
Arjun, we have seen after analyzing the data from EPFO, one gets to know that within first 6 months, 42% of employees or first timer leave the job, and this number is as high as 56%. So this scheme incentivizes employee if he is there in the job. Now what happens for MSME? The recruitment process itself is a very tedious and it requires a lot of investment for them. So if an employee joins them and leaves very frequently, then productivity is affected. But this scheme incentivizes the employee and employer both, that everyone has to remain there for at least 6 months. It helps them improve their productivity and definitely cuts costs when it comes to employee hiring.
So attrition is part and parcel of the employment process itself, and clearly employees are always looking for a hike in benefits and pay, all of that associated with your salary, your wages that you earn. Could you tell me what is the eligibility criteria for someone who wishes to come under the scheme?
So any employee with less than 1 lakh rupee per month gross wages is eligible under this scheme, irrespective of which industry he is joining or whether employer is eligible or not. Irrespective of that, every first timer will get the incentive provided that his gross salary is less than 1 lakh rupees per month. Only condition is that he has to be there for 6 months. Apart from these incentives, the ministry is also working on the system so that they are mentored also, so that initial hiccups are there. So first thing is, whenever one joins some firm, there is some kind of displacement. So this incentive of 1 month wages, sometimes it kind of compensates some of his costs, and also this mentoring system and the responsibility of employer also to keep him for 6 months to get incentive. We are hoping with this attrition rate will come down from 56% to 30%.
So Ajay Sharma ji, you mentioned about the disbursement of the benefits. You also mentioned about the DBT, the direct benefit transfer scheme, and the use of the Aadhaar card which is linked to it as well. For the benefit of our listeners, could you tell us how this mechanism actually works?
So one of the objectives of the scheme is to improve social security and social protection. And as you must have heard, that ILO in its report has appreciated India for improving the social protection coverage, which was just 19% in 2015 to 64.3% in 2025. So by this scheme, because all the first timers will come under the EPFO, so they get social protection. So this will further improve our social protection. Now, the UAN number, that is Universal Account Number, which every employee gets, it is again linked to Aadhaar system. And, we will use Umang app, the face authentication technology, for this UAN number generation. And similarly, the fund transfer or incentive transfer will be through DBT. So there is no manual intervention in all this. Even in case of employer, whatever benefit is getting, simple IT system, very robust IT system, will calculate their incentive and they will get their benefit in their account. So there is no manual interference in this. So similarly, we have integrations with GST, IT department, EPFO has its own robust system, so that will ensure that the risk fraudulent things are not there.
So clearly this is to ensure that fraud is not perpetrated. You understand who's a first time applicant and who is not a first time applicant. It does not cause undue loss to the exchequer as well. And the International Labour Organization has also looked into this and commended on the technology that we are using right now. Could you tell us about how this scheme is aligned with the address of the Honorable Prime Minister, because you're again linking employment with industry, especially industry now and industry which will bear fruit all the way till 2047.
So, as you rightly said, that the scheme has two components and two parts. It incentivizes employee and employer. But incentivizing employee is also a kind of incentive to the industry, because if the employee is there for 6 months, there is a learning curve. Initially 2-3 months he learns. Within 6 months his productivity is definitely better. So it will improve the productivity of the industry. Definitely there is a direct incentive to the employer as well for retaining this employee, whether he is a first timer or rejoinee. In case of employer, the incentive flows to the employer even if there is rejoinee, as long as there is an additional employment.
So effectively you're seeing a 5 to 10% bump in employment per establishment just by the virtue of this scheme, effectively speaking.
So if we look at the complete figure, then we have estimated that this will support employment to 3.5 crore of the employees, and the part A is expected to support around 1.92 crore employments, and part B, which is incentive to the employer, we estimate around 2.6 crore employees will be benefited or will be supported through that incentive.
Ajay Sharma ji, my final question is, our listeners want to know which is the portal that they can access for this vital information.
So Arjun, first of all, I want to tell the listeners, both employers and employees are there, that there is no additional registration process for it. The scheme is very simple. So if there is an employer, he simply has to go to his employer login and he has to simply fill 2 or 3 fields. That is it. The total process for him to get onboarded on the scheme is 2 minutes. Similarly, for the employee, they have to just go through this Umang app and register for their UAN number or Universal Account Number through face recognition app. So it's a very simple process, doesn't take more than 2 to 3 minutes.
Well, thank you so much, Ajay Sharma ji, a Joint Secretary with the Ministry of Labour and Employment, and giving us a more in-depth understanding about the details of the Pradhan Mantri Viksit Bharat Rozgar scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun.
You were listening to a discussion on Pradhan Mantri Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana. The participants were Ajoy Sharma, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, and Arjun Chaudhari, Anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official.
Money Talk.